All right, everyone, ready to hit the court? Today we're diving into the world of tennis coaching. We're using RoleCatcher as our playbook for this deep dive into what this career really looks like.
I'm game. This should be interesting.
So when you imagine a tennis coach, you probably picture someone courtside calling the shots, right? But what does RoleCatcher say about what they actually do?
It's definitely more than just yelling backhand from the sidelines. RoleCatcher highlights how it's a mix of things. You've got your technical instruction, like perfecting that serve, but you've also got the strategic planning side, almost like a chess match on the court.
Okay, so brains and brawn, got it. Anything else?
Don't forget motivation. RoleCatcher really emphasizes that across the board. I mean, even the seasoned pros need that extra push from someone who believes in them.
That's so true. And I bet knowing how to motivate different players is key. It's not one size fits all, right?
Absolutely not. Someone who responds to a visual demo might need a totally different approach than someone who thrives on step-by-step instructions. A good coach figures out how to unlock each player's potential.
You're right. I hadn't even considered that communication aspect. Now, I'm also curious about this whole lone wolf coach idea. Is that a real thing, or do most coaches work within a larger structure?
Well, RoleCatcher actually debunks that myth. While there are definitely independent coaches out there, a lot of them work within established places, like tennis clubs, schools, or even sports centers.
Makes sense. Organized sports need those qualified coaches.
Exactly. And that means more options for someone who loves tennis and wants to make it a career.
So, more to coaching than meets the eye, and lots of settings to think about. Okay, let's get into the details. RoleCatcher breaks down a typical day in the life of a tennis coach by career stage, right? Entry level, junior coach, and senior coach.
Yep, that's right. It's cool to see how things change as you move up.
Let's start with those early days. What's an entry-level coach focused on, according to RoleCatcher?
Think of it like this. You're just starting out, eager to prove yourself. At this stage, it's all about building that solid foundation.
So probably more assisting experienced coaches, not quite running the show solo yet?
Right, maybe helping with group lessons, teaching those basic grips and strokes, making sure everyone's safe and having fun, especially when you're working with beginners, especially kids. Keeping it enjoyable is huge.
For sure, no one's sticking with the sport they don't enjoy. Okay, so you've put in the work, gained some experience. What's next on this tennis coaching journey?
Well, that's where you might step into the junior coach role. RoleCatcher points out that this is where your responsibilities start expanding. You might be leading your own lessons now, maybe working with small groups or individual players.
So you're not just following a script anymore, you're developing your own style.
Exactly. And tailoring your approach. RoleCatcher gives a good example. One junior coach talked about learning to identify a player's learning style. Some people are visual, show them what to do, and they get it. Others need a more hands-on method.
Right, like how some people learn best by reading while others are more auditory. You've got to find the right teaching method.
Yeah, and that adaptability is huge in the coaching world.
Okay, so we've gone from assisting to leading. What's the peak of this career path, according to RoleCatcher?
That would be the senior coach level. Now, you're not just shaping individual players, you might be shaping the whole program. Things get really interesting here. Think about strategizing for tournaments, managing coaching staff, maybe even scouting for new talent.
Hold on, scouting for talent. Now that sounds intense. Are we talking about spotting the next Serena Williams or Roger Federer here?
Well, maybe. It might not always be about finding that future Grand Slam champ, but it does mean having an eye for potential. A senior coach might observe young players, see what they're good at, where they need work, and maybe even recommend them for special training programs.
Wow, that's a whole other level. You're not just a coach, you're a talent scout, a mentor.
And don't forget the business aspect. At this level, you might be overseeing budgets, building connections with tennis academies. It's a lot more than just on-court stuff.
So the higher you go, the more business savvy you need, huh? It's not just about that backhand anymore.
It's about the business of tennis.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher makes that clear. But hey, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to those early stages. It'd be helpful to really picture a typical day for each coaching level. What do you think?
Absolutely. That's a great way to understand the progression. Let's start with that entry-level coach. What does their day look like according to RoleCatcher? So, set the scene for me. It's a beautiful morning, perfect for tennis. Our aspiring entry-level coach is heading to work. What's on their to-do list?
Well, they're probably not relaxing in some air-conditioned office. RoleCatcher makes it clear these coaches are on the move all day, juggling a bunch of different tasks.
So more like running around chasing tennis balls than pushing papers.
Exactly. They might be up early, prepping the court for morning lessons, getting equipment organized, maybe even squeezing in a few practice swings to stay sharp.
I can practically smell that fresh cut grass and sunscreen.
Then it's go time. The morning could be all about assisting with a beginner's group lesson. Patiently showing them how to hold the racket, the right stance, and those very first swings.
I bet that takes a ton of patience, especially with young players.
Oh, absolutely. An entry-level coach is often working with people who are totally new to the sport, so creating that fun, supportive environment is key. RoleCatcher even talks about how important it is to celebrate those small wins, like a clean volley or a new serve.
Right. It's about building their confidence as much as teaching the technique.
For sure.
Oh.
Now, later in the day, that entry-level coach might be the one feeding balls during drills for the more experienced players. This gives the senior coach a chance to observe and give feedback. It's a great way to learn by watching the pros, so to speak.
Like an apprenticeship, picking up those skills along the way.
Exactly. And don't forget the behind-the-scenes stuff. Our entry-level coach might also be responsible for things like booking court time, communicating with parents, maybe even helping with some marketing for the tennis program.
Okay, so even early on, there's a little taste of that business side that we talked about. It's not all sunshine and aces, huh?
Nope, not always.
Yeah.
And speaking of the good and the bad, RoleCatcher is pretty honest about both the pros and cons of this career path. Should we get into those?
Let's do it. Lay the good stuff on me first. What does RoleCatcher highlight as the best parts of being a tennis coach?
Well, one of the biggest perks, especially for those independent coaches, is the flexibility. You're often setting your own hours, which is huge for people with families or other commitments.
That makes a lot of sense. If you've got a little one at home, you probably can't be tied to a strict 9 to 5 schedule.
Exactly. And it's not just about the time, it's about the environment. RoleCatcher talks about how much coaches love being outdoors, feeling the energy of the court, instead of being stuck inside all day.
I mean, who wouldn't prefer fresh air and the sound of tennis balls over fluorescent lights, right?
Right. And let's not forget about the earning potential. Obviously, it varies depending on your experience, location, all that. But RoleCatcher points out that experienced coaches, especially those with a solid client base, can make really good money.
So you can actually turn your passion for the game into a decent living.
For sure. And for a lot of coaches, the real rewards go way beyond the paycheck. RoleCatcher shares stories from coaches who talk about how amazing it is to watch their students improve, get more confident, and even achieve their tennis dreams. Those moments are super fulfilling for a coach.
Okay, that all sounds amazing. But it can't all be perfect, right? What does RoleCatcher say are some of the more challenging parts of being a tennis coach?
Well, this might surprise some people, but the income can be inconsistent, especially when you're starting out. Building a steady client base takes time. RoleCatcher even mentions that a lot of new coaches end up teaching on evenings and weekends to fit their clients' schedules, which isn't ideal for everyone.
So finding that work-life balance can be tricky, especially early on.
Yeah. And while being active is a plus for a lot of people, it can be demanding. You're on your feet a lot, often in different weather conditions, picking up balls, demonstrating techniques.
Right, it's not just about looking good in your tennis whites. You've got to have the stamina.
Oh, definitely. Now, this next one isn't unique to coaching, but RoleCatcher does mention the potential for stress. You're dealing with different personalities, managing expectations, and sometimes dealing with the competitive side of things, which can be a lot.
I can see that. You're not just coaching tennis, you're coaching people, and everyone comes with their own baggage.
Exactly. It's a very people-focused job, which comes with its own challenges.
Okay, so we've talked about the highs and lows, the excitement, and the potential downsides. Now let's zoom out a bit. RoleCatcher mentions some industry trends that are shaping the world of tennis coaching. What's the current state of things? Is there a demand for more coaches, or is it already a super competitive field? So is the tennis world hurting for more coaches, or is it already super competitive?
Well, good news for anyone wanting to coach. RoleCatcher says the demand for qualified coaches is growing globally.
Okay, that's awesome. What's behind that demand? Are those epic Federer-Nadal matches inspiring a whole new generation of players?
Well, those don't hurt. But RoleCatcher points to a few other things. For one, tennis is just getting more popular around the world, especially among younger people. It's not just a rich person's sport anymore.
True. Even I've seen tennis courts popping up in all kinds of places lately.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And with more people playing, you need more qualified coaches to teach them.
Right.
From those first swings to the really competitive stuff. RoleCatcher also says that more people are realizing how good tennis is for you, both physically and mentally, so they're looking for good coaches at every level.
Yeah, it's not all about going pro. It's about staying active, having fun, blowing off some steam.
Exactly. And that's where you come in, because RoleCatcher is really clear about one thing. Being a successful tennis coach takes more than just being really good at tennis.
So what makes a coach stand out? Besides, hitting an amazing forehand.
Well, remember how we talked about motivation? That's even more important in a crowded field. RoleCatcher really focuses on the soft skills, communicating well, inspiring your students, connecting with them. It doesn't matter how much you know if you can't get your player motivated.
Totally. It's like they say, people don't care what you know until they know you care.
100%. Imagine two coaches with the same skills, but only one knows how to really connect with their students. Who do you think is going to have a better career?
No question. But RoleCatcher also mentioned business skills, even for coaches who aren't running their own show. What's the deal with that?
Even if you're working for a bigger organization, you probably have to manage your own schedule, maybe do a little marketing to get clients, and even handle some finances.
So it's almost like you have your own little business inside a bigger one.
Right. And today, that means understanding online marketing, social media, maybe even some basic accounting software. Those skills can make a real difference.
Wow, so many different skills for one job. It's not just what happens on the court at all.
Not at all. And that leads us to another big takeaway from RoleCatcher: specialization. It's not a one-size-fits-all career. You can focus on what you're passionate about.
Okay, so tell me more about these tennis coaching specialties. What are some of the options RoleCatcher talks about?
Well, some coaches love working with kids, bringing that high energy, making it fun. Others focus on training future pros, which is a whole different ballgame.
So you've got the coaches who are great with kids and the ones who are like drill sergeants.
You got it. You can even specialize in a certain part of the game. Some coaches are known for teaching killer serves. Others might be masters of footwork. RoleCatcher even talked about coaches who work with players with disabilities, which is really cool.
That's fantastic. It shows how inclusive the coaching world can be.
For sure. It's all about finding your niche, your people, what really excites you about coaching. And that makes it more fulfilling for everyone.
I love that. So for our listeners who are feeling inspired to dust off their rackets or maybe even pick up a whistle, what are some real steps they can take?
Well, RoleCatcher is a great starting point. Tons of info there. But don't stop there. Talk to real coaches in your area. Maybe volunteer or shadow someone. See what it's really like. And here's one last thought. As you explore coaching, remember that it goes way beyond just technique. It's about understanding the mental game too. The psychology, the emotions, all of that.
So it's about coaching people just as much as it is about coaching tennis.
100%.
Yeah.
Never forget that, and you'll be well on your way to being an amazing coach.
Fantastic advice. And there you have it, folks. We've served up a whole lot of information about the exciting world of tennis coaching thanks to our playbook, RoleCatcher. Remember, this deep dive just scratches the surface. So get out there, explore those resources, maybe even hit the court yourself. Who knows, maybe we'll see you courtside one day, shaping the next generation of tennis stars.